Welcome to Top of the Order, a Bruin and McEwen podcast. I am Adam Cartwright, and joining me, as always, is Matt Giardino. Matt, how are you doing tonight, bud?
Doing good, doing good. Feeling pretty good after a solid opening weekend in conference play, and overall looking forward to going over the show.
Awesome, awesome, man. Well, it's great to be here with you tonight. We have a jam-packed show as we have a weekend series to recap. We've also got a midweek preview to give you. We'll take a look at the conference standings after 1 week. Obviously, not a lot, or a lot will change. So there's not a lot going on, but some interesting things to look at. We'll also give you a Pro Bowl update with the former Bulls making their ways through spring training, and then we'll finish off with a new segment that I hope you guys are going to like called "Name That Bull." So yeah, let's go ahead and take the field, Matt, and let's get this going. Uh, we'll start off with the weekend recap. It was a 2-1 series win. However, it did not go so great on Friday night. We'll go ahead and look at that, Matt. What are your thoughts on the Friday night game?
Uh, the thing about the Friday night game is, just not getting a good pitching start out of the gate. Got ourselves in a hole pretty early, and from there it was kind of playing catch up and coming back from an early 8-run deficit. It's always going to be tough to come back from that. So the guys battled. They strung some hits together. A couple of good hitting performances with Drew getting 3 hits and Ben adding a couple hits as well. I think Marcus added a couple hits, but overall, just not a great night on the bump. But that one was quickly washed away as we went later on to the weekend.
Yeah, like you said, 16-7 is just never how you want Friday night to go, uh, in any way. And it's like you said earlier, I think it was Yogi Berra that used to say it got late really early. And it got late pretty early on Friday night. In the third inning, it just really didn't feel like a very competitive ball game from then on. But like you said, we did get some great hitting performances from Drew with 3 for 5. Uh, Ball was really jumping out of the ballpark on Friday night. I don't know what was going on with the jet stream there. 8 home runs combined between the two teams. Uh, Got to tip your hat to Dante Stewart, hit for the cycle on Friday night. He had a really good game. Um, but we had 3 home runs. Rosenbrew, Montez, and like you said, Brodil got his first of the year. Dawson Mock hit a triple, Brutch hit a double. Add another 4 or 5 extra base hits on their side. Just really jumping off the bat. Um, we did get some pretty good outings from some of our relief pitchers. Mason Manriquez had a pretty decent outing, 1.2, 3 hits, 1 run. It wasn't earned, only 1 walk. Newton had a couple really good outings, I thought, over the course of the weekend that got going on Friday. Um, yeah, go. Any other thoughts on Friday night?
Yeah, definitely think it's great to see Mason come back. I know he's dealt with some illnesses over the winter break, so for him to come back and come out with some productivity, I think that's really exciting to see, especially as we head into the later parts of the season. We're going to need that pitching depth, and anytime you can find a guy that can give you 1.2 innings and not give up an earned run, that's definitely an added bonus to the team.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, like you said, it did get better as we moved into Saturday. We'll do that now. 5-3 victory for the Bulls. Took the lead in the fifth inning. I do not believe we gave it back up, although it did get a little, it always gets a little hairy sometimes. But really good game overall, I thought, for the Bulls. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, overall, it was a really well-rounded game. We got some timely hitting. Eric Snow had a great game, getting 3 hits, a couple RBIs. Also, a couple other guys. We know that John Montez had a great weekend, and he added 2 productive hits in that particular win as well. But overall, looks like we had a really good game that day, and Jack did his thing. He only gave up 2 earned runs in 6 innings. Something we always harp on is, if we can get our starters deep in the games, we're going to have a good chance to win. And Jack gave us exactly that. He only gave up 2 walks and got 5 strikeouts. Kind of set us up to really have a good rest of the game.
Yeah, I accidentally pulled a fast one on you there, and I pulled up the Sunday. box score early. So it was Montez that had the three-hit game on Saturday. Stewart's, or I'm sorry, Snow's was on Sunday, but my apologies on that. But like you said, great start from Jack, and it really kind of was the Jack Siebert show as an unfortunate blunder with the lineup cards left our DH off of the lineup, and Jack had to make some had to. I mean, for what it's worth, he had to. We joked about it, right? He went 1 for 2. He did all this stuff, and we joked about it. But it was really big because that's a moment where your coach makes a mistake, and nobody's used to that. Everybody's used to anybody on that baseball field making a mental mistake, but nobody's really used to the head coach making that kind of mental mistake. And or who it's going to fall on Coach Mole. I don't know who made it, but Jack took it and turned it into a positive. Got a good sack bunt down, turned around and got a single. Uh, Chandler Dorsey also had a walk. So they took that negative and turned it into a positive, and I really think that had an impact on the whole game. What do you think?
Yeah, and I agree. I think for me that was personally the highlight of the season, seeing Jack get that base hit, how excited he was getting to first base and looking back at the dugout. That you look at small little moments like that as a turning point in the season. And I'm not saying that's exactly what it is yet, but very well could be. And rallying the team around each other, and a uh, team led by the players is always going to be a more productive team. So that might be a moment right there that we're looking at a couple weeks down the road that was the turning point for the season.
Absolutely. I mean, if anything, it could be a turning point for Jack, just a really high note to kind of build off of. And if he kind of catches fire, then we're going to catch fire, kind of go with him. It's going to be a big boost for us. Uh, Drew Rutcher picked up 3 walks in this one, continued kind of being just a very efficient hitter up there in the leadoff spot. He's still leading the nation in walks. Stuart Puckett also had a 3-hit game in this one and a couple of RBIs. Uh, Montez had 5. This is the game he had the big grand slam um, home run that really kind of sealed it, I believe, there in the eighth for us. Um, really, really just a great game overall. Any final thoughts on the Saturday game?
Yeah, the one last thing I want to point out is Nick Pineda, the freshman, coming in with the scoreless relief appearance. That was really exciting to see. And yeah, we've had a lot of good freshman pitching efforts, but in a close ball game like that, to come in and pitch an inning and a third scoreless, that's really exciting to see. And it might be an opportunity to give him some higher leverage situations down the line, where we could see him, contribute in that manner too.
Yeah, and I think another thing I noticed this weekend is we're starting to see Chandler Dorsey come in for more than 3 out save opportunities. He's coming in into the eighth and he's getting, 1.2 this week. And I think last weekend his save was a 2 or a 6 out save, a 2 inning save. So it is kind of nice to see when your top end reliever, the guy you really want to see, isn't necessarily preserved for the ninth. He can come in for the eighth and he's really able to kind of carry over into the ninth and finish the game. So I thought that was really good to see as well.
I definitely agree on that.
Well, on Sunday, the rubber match, it was 1-1. We ended up taking the series. This one was 5-3. As you mentioned, Eric Snow had his 3-hit game, 1 run, 2 RBIs. Really, really good game for him overall. Montez, another big game, 2 hits. Uh, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely another pretty close game. We had some good pitching performances too. Clutch hitting across the board. Um, and then also, with Bryce Archie, he continues to get lengthened out a little bit more. He goes 4 innings this game, gives up 2 earned runs, but at the same time, he looked really good doing it too. So really excited to see him continue to build up. And yeah, I wouldn't be completely surprised if a little bit later down the line he moves up even further in the rotation. He might end up being even this is pure speculation, but he could be a guy that ends up being the Friday night guy. If we continue to see him get stretched out and grow the way he has in this early part of the season.
Yeah, well, he certainly is the Sunday guy for now. I think he kind of put a stamp on that this weekend. He's had kind of two straight weekends where it's not perfect, by any means. Again, he had to battle out, but he did battle out. He got us out. He kept his team in a position to win, and that's really what we're looking for, especially on Sunday when it could be like it is, where it was 1-1, and we really needed this Sunday game, uh, to get the series. So that was good. Austin Newton again. We talked about it on Friday. He had another good outing here on Sunday. Goes 1.2, strikes out two. But I think the real person that it was great to see was Riley Skeen. Had a really great game after kind of some roller coastery kind of performances from him. But Sunday was not that. He faced five batters, struck out four of them, didn't give up a hit, run, or a walk. Or a base runner. Fly out was the other one, uh, and picked up again another multiple inning save. That was a 5 out save. So is he kind of turning a corner? Is he going to be somebody we can look to in some of these later innings? He's got some
Yeah,
experience from doing it last year, so yeah,
yeah, I think a guy like Riley, like you point to his experience, he's had a lot of success at points last season, and it's just a matter of him getting back into a groove. And I think this could be an opportunity for him to take this as some confidence and take that into his opportunities that he'll be given in the future. And I'm really, really excited to see him come back out there. And like you said, four strikeouts in 1.2 innings, no walks.
Mhm.
Even him and Austin Newton both, multiple strikeouts, no walks. Really good day overall with pitching, only giving up 2 earned runs, 12 strikeouts, four walks. You like to see that be a little bit lower, but I'll take 3 strikeouts to 1 walk ratio any day of the week.
Yeah, especially on Sunday, right? When we're supposed to be, kind of work through some of our bullpen arms. So when you come out and you get a performance like that, hold a team to 2 runs, that was really, really great to see.
Au- Austin getting Austin getting multiple appearances in the weekend. That's really exciting. That's something to keep an eye out for in upcoming games.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're gonna be looking for some great things out of him coming up. Any final thoughts on the weekend? Maybe some final general thoughts overall.
I think that it's an awesome way to start out conference play. We know how important conference play is, and especially when it comes to seeding for the tournament and being able to potentially get a first round bye in the tournament. So I think that we positioned ourselves pretty well. Obviously, you would have liked to take that Friday night game, but you're throwing out your best, and they're throwing out their best on Friday night, so that's always a toss up. Overall, really satisfied with how the team performed this weekend.
Absolutely. Well, we did have to adjust for injuries, and I think we didn't get to have our show last week because some scheduling mishaps, but um, we've had to kind of deal with some injuries here with Bozer, Rafi, and Buffington as well, who is actually kind of somebody that had to kind of come in because of the injuries that had kind of got banged up in the process. But out of these injuries, we've seen Puckett, like I said, we've seen Buffington, although he's injured. We've seen Nick Rodriguez, we've seen Mock enter the lineup. What are your thoughts on some of these guys entering the lineup and how they fared so far?
Yeah, I think that they've in different spots they've made the most of those opportunities. Especially Buffington before he got injured. I thought he showed some great potential out there. Bummer that he was unfortunately not able to play as the injuries got to him. But overall, I think it's really a big building block for some of these younger kids to be able to get this experience, especially as we're getting into conference play now. Um, it's definitely an important part of it. You never know. We talk about it all the time. Next man up. You never know when someone's going to get injured. So to have them get those opportunities, it's really big.
Absolutely. Just real quick, I think Puckett took full advantage of his opportunities. I think he's kind of hit his way into the lineup. He's kind of made his stance that maybe when some of these guys get back, there's still maybe an opportunity to find a way to get Puckett into that lineup. I really like, but like you said, I really like what Buffington was doing behind the plate. I thought some of his struggles kind of later were due to that thumb injury, and that's
Mhm.
tough when you're a catcher with a banged up thumb. That's tough. It's tough to receive. It's tough to hit. Like it's just tough. Um, but yeah, like you said, good to see those young players out there. We saw some veterans kind of work into the lineup as well with Brodell coming into left field. What are your thoughts on him maybe kind of being the everyday left fielder?
Yeah, he's shown a lot of potential, especially when he was a freshman. He went on a streak, I would say 2 or 3 weeks where he was just hitting the cover off the ball, and he had a little bit of struggles last year and then got it back together a little bit towards the end of the season. Dealt with some injuries earlier this season, or rather in the off season, and for him to get some opportunities, I think he's a tremendous talent. It's great to see him get those opportunities, and he's the kind of guy that if he gets hot, watch out because he's going to be hitting for power. He's going to be hitting in the gaps quite often, and he's going to be a really productive part of the lineup anytime he's in there.
Absolutely. I mean, just a really athletic looking kid, man. I see him in the box and I feel like, man, this guy can hit it to the moon. Uh,
He's a strong kid.
strong, made a couple at least one really really good play and left over this past weekend as well. So he's a pretty good defender out there. Last note about these injuries, I just wanted to give a lot of props to Ben Rosenblum. He played left field, he played first base, he had to catch, and then he had to go back into catcher when Buffington got banged up. Really just a team guy. It just has really taken it upon himself to be somebody that can play multiple positions and kind of work at understanding how to play all these multiple positions. It just has been a real benefit to us when dealing with these injuries. Much like you would think Bozer would do for us because of his versatility, right? But when Bozer goes down, it's like, oh, what do we do? And Ben has really stepped up. I just want to give him his props on that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And he's done that throughout his whole entire career at USF, even times when we've had some player suspensions and, even early on in his first season with USF, he was out there in different positions. And I think there's a really good benefit of having a guy like him and a guy like Joaquin that can not only play catcher, but they play a stellar third base, first base, left field, wherever you put them. They're going to give you an above replacement level effort in defense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's always great to have that on your roster. Well, moving on, stars of the weekend. I do want to point out that congratulations to John Montez, named the American Athletic Conference Player of the Week. He hit 400 this weekend, had 15 total bases, 8 RBIs, and that big grand slam. Some other stars from the weekend, Drew Brutcher, I mentioned, he hit 500 on the weekend, 6 walks to add to that nation leading number. Again, just so efficient. And I really just want to point out really quickly, it we moved him back to the top of the lineup from the midweeks where we had him batting third, and I really like the move back to the top. I feel like he is such an efficient hitter. He really thrives in that spot in the lineup, and I really think the batting order as a whole really just kind of builds off of the momentum that he can create, and there's just a lot of synergy going through. So I really like to see that. And then final star for me is going to be Siebert. We talked about a 6 innings pitch, only 2 runs, 5 Ks, 1 for 2 with the sack in the batter's box. Any thoughts on these stars for the weekend, or any others to add?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you on moving Drew Britcher back up to the leadoff spot. And I think that's really being enabled by the fact that John Montez is producing at such a high level with extra base hits, hitting home runs, hitting grand slams. Having a guy like that that you could put in the 3 hole or the 4 hole and drive in a bunch of runs, I think, really allows the flexibility of having a guy that, is probably well above 500% on base percentage for the year,
Mhm.
batting first in the lineup. It's a real weapon to have. And, there's some guys at the bottom of our order too that get on base pretty often. So there's still no shortage of RBI opportunities for him in the first spot in the order either.
Absolutely. And it's like you mentioned with Montez, we talked about when Bozer got hurt, who was going to kind of step into that 4 spot. And I feel like he's kind of been the best one since he's been moved into that spot. So it's been really, really, really good to see from him. Uh, Well, the Bulls were not the only American Athletic Conference teams in play this weekend. In fact, everybody opened up the conference season. What were your thoughts on week one of American Athletic Conference play?
Yeah, it was a really interesting weekend overall. I think the biggest one for me was the big UTSA and ECU series. UTSA, first year in the conference. We know they're a very good program. They're not a program to look over by any means, but for them to go in and beat ECU 2 out of 3, I think that sets a big statement for them. And yeah, maybe there's some things that ECU still has to figure out for themselves, but coming into the weekend, they were ranked 10th in the country. So obviously, they have a lot of good talent coming into this year. But overall, that was kind of the biggest takeaway for me in terms of conference play.
Absolutely. How about UTSA not only winning the series, but they went and gave Trey Yesevich his first loss of the season and took them and took ECU on Friday night. I think that took a blow. Now I understand they bounced back on Saturday, got the win, but I mean they didn't get the win on the series. They lost on Sunday. I don't think there was any expectation from from ECU that UTSA was going to win that Friday night game. I don't know if anybody really had that on their bingo card, if anything. But that's huge to get a Friday night win against who's probably going to be one of the best pitchers in the country when it's all said and done. Um, Other thoughts for me, Wichita State sits on top of the leaderboards right now because of their overall record being 15-8, and they won their series with UAB. But that was kind of a surprise for me, if you remember when I gave my kind of conference preview. I didn't really know what Wichita State was going to be. They had a lot of transfers, but obviously they brought guys in to replace those transfers, and they're playing pretty well right now. And so again, that kind of shocked me. But again, like you said, the biggest thing right now is we've got a 12-12 team that's sitting in the top half, and we've got a 16-6 team that's sitting in the bottom half because of just the craziness of conference play. Uh, you got to know that everybody that's kind of in those thought processes of we might have a shot to win this, man, they're licking their chops now because the top dog has already kind of dropped one, right? They've already kind of opened up a little bit of an opportunity, and so a real chance here. Now, I do feel bad for UAB because they're going to get a an upset ECU that's probably going to want to make a statement next weekend. So that'll be interesting to see what happens there. Any final thoughts for the conference standing?
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting thought you had about Wichita State because I always keep track of the transfer portal and with D1 baseball. And I remember last year, I believe at one time there was 14 or 15 guys in the portal from Wichita State. Uh, I think they had a turnover with their coaching staff and stuff like that. But for them to come out and they're 15-8 overall, winning their first conference series of the year, that might be a team to look out for because there was a lot of unknowns going into this year, and it seems like they've really done a good job of building something back up over there.
There is. I think if there's anything we can take from this conference, week one is going to be. It's like we all kind of talked about in the beginning. It's going to be very competitive, and so
Yeah, that's for sure.
week in and week out, you're going to need to bring your game.
And then FAU too, winning their first series. They've had some really good midweek games, some early non-conference games that they've won. Being 14-8, winning their first series, that's definitely a team to look out for.
Absolutely, they're going to be real tough, real tough. It took that series against Charlotte. So, all right. Well, moving on, we do have a midweek on tonight. As you're listening to this on Tuesdays, we record on a Monday night. The Bulls will travel to Tallahassee to take on Bethune-Cookman in midweek action. Just to give you some numbers real quick before I pass it over to you. They are currently 12-10. Their RPI is 256. They do have two recent common opponents. They played UNF and Jacksonville University, JU, in their two most recent midweeks. And so you might remember that we drew them in midweeks as well. Interesting, they won both of those games, but they were both low scoring and close, whereas ours are kind of the opposite of that. Um, before we kind of look into maybe potential pitchers and stuff along those lines, do you have any general thoughts about Bethune-Cookman?
Yeah, no, it's always a really interesting road trip whenever we go and play them over there. Obviously they're doing pretty decent this year at 12 and 10, and maybe their RPI isn't the highest right now, but overall they're always a competitive team, and these midweek games they're always challenging, and it's interesting to hear that they've been playing some low scoring midweek games, kind of the opposite of what you would think. Definitely interested to talk about some of their pitchers.
Yeah, real quick before we do that, I do want to give you the history. 19 wins, 9 losses all time in favor of the Bulls. We are currently in a 7 game win streak. Last matchup was a 13-2 victory for the Bulls. Important to point out, well, I believe it's always important to point out something like this, but 3 out of the last 4 victories for the Bulls have been by at least 10 or more runs. So history shows us to have some pretty good offensive performances when we played Bethune-Cookman. So we definitely want to look into that. But yeah, like I did say though, their last 2 midweeks, low scoring affairs. Jacksonville was a 4-3 victory for them, and North Florida a 2-1 victory for them. And one of the reasons for that is a kid that we might see on the mound. He's the starting pitcher for both of those games. Uh, by the name of Joel Core. Pretty decent season so far, 2.7 ERA. He does have an 0-2 record, but again, he's not going very deep in some of these games, and they are close, so he might be leaving in a tied score. But 19 strikeouts in 20 innings to 11 walks. His last 2 starts, he's gone at least 5 and 6 innings, which for midweek, that's pretty good. Uh, we it's kind of contributing to those low scores. Another guy we might see is Dylan Dudonis. He typically comes in after uh, a core. He not as productive overall as core, but again, uh, the teams aren't scoring very many runs. So, any general thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty interesting matchup with them having a good midweek starter. But I think overall with the matchup, I think what's cool about it is we get to play in a historical stadium, Daytona Beach Stadium or Daytona Stadium. There's a lot of history to that stadium, so it's always really fun to watch that game on stream on ESPN Plus. Uh, there's a lot of history with that with I believe Jackie Robinson. So looking forward to catching that game and getting to see what the guys can do.
Yeah, just to give you a few names on the offensive side to keep an eye out for. Jose Gonzalez, batting 338, is their top hitter. 27 hits, 1 home run, only 2 doubles, only 3 extra base hits. Uh, not really their power guy. That is going to be Chun or Garrett Chun, 21 RBIs leading their teams. They do only have the one 300 hitter, but they do have 4 guys hitting over 280. Um, Again, that the other ones being Peter Vasquez and Sergio Rivera. So some names to keep an eye on. And another name we might want to keep an eye out for, former Bull, we might remember, Dylan Vega is a relief pitcher for Bethune-Cookman. He's made a lot of appearances this week, or I'm sorry, this year. Some of those appearances are coming in midweek, so there's a good chance we could see Mr. Vega pitching against us instead of wearing the green or gold. Any thoughts or memories about Vega?
Yeah, it's funny. One good memory I have about Dylan is I think it was his first start ever at USF, and it was I believe it was a Sunday or Saturday start, and he ended up doing really well that game. I think he ended up going 5 innings, and the first 2 or 3 innings he hadn't given up a hit. I have some really great memories about Dylan, and he has a great mom too. They originate from the Pembroke Pines area, but really great kid, great family. Happy to see that he's got himself on a roster, and looking forward to potentially seeing him out there.
Awesome, absolutely. Well, Dylan, we do wish you well, bud. Maybe not good luck in this next one, but the rest of the season, we hope you do very well. All right. We'll move on now. We'll give you some Pro Bowl updates. So again, we are in the kind of the end of spring training now as teams are getting ready to move into the pro season as it gets going, and just give you an update on a few of our Pro Bowls. And we'll maybe try to do this every week, and we'll pick 3 to 4 of them. Maybe try to let you guys know how they are doing. Um, I'll start kind of giving uh, a quick breakdown, and then we'll kind of let you kind of kick in from there, Matt. But we'll start with Carmine Lane. If you remember, was drafted by the Marlins. Oh, I do want to bring it up is I saw on X an X post that he actually was called up to big league camp and got an at bat. Uh, I think it was a ground out. Again, just one at bat, but for him to get called up into the big leagues, that's awesome to see that they know your name at least, right? Hopefully, in a couple of years, he gets a full invite and gets to really show what he can do. David VR, if you remember, he plays for the Giants. He's having a really good spring, batting 308 in 18 games. Again, hopefully, he really finds a spot, maybe catches hot for the Giants. Listen, they made some big signings in the pitching staff, so could be some good things coming from them. Uh, Next, I'll talk about Austin Adams. If you'll remember earlier in this free agency, he was signed by the Mets and added, it was a minor league deal. He has now been traded to the Athletics, and with that trade, he has been added to their 40-man roster. So that's awesome to hear for him. Might have a better chance of seeing him in some pro games. I'd imagine they're going to put him on the opening day roster, but we'll just see how that goes for him. And then finally, some unfortunate news. Orion Kirkering is going to start the season on the IL due to an illness. And from what I've read in the article, he is doing better from the illness. However, it did take up a lot of the spring, and so he's going to take essentially an uh, extra time in the spring to get cleared before he gets going. Any thoughts on this pro updates, Matt?
Yeah, with Orion, I try to reach out to his mom and see how things are going, but I've not had a chance to hear back from her yet. And then wishing him well. But aside from that, I think the thing that really stands out to me was David VR having a great spring. Seems like he struggled in some springs prior to that. So with him having a cup of coffee in the major leagues and then putting together a really strong spring performance, really looking forward to seeing what types of opportunities that he'll have this year. I know they're gonna have a very competitive team. They've invested a lot of money into their roster, but definitely think there's some opportunity for him to get some at bats this year in the majors.
Absolutely. Well, good luck to all our Pro Bowls out there. Like I said, we'll be giving you some updates as we go. Oh, well, we need to move on to our final segment. This is one I hope you guys will like. It's going to be called Name That Bull. Real quick, I'll explain the rules. They are simple. We will give you 3 bulls or 3 clues about a former Bulls baseball player. And if you guys will just want to comment on the post on X for this episode with your guess. Next week, we'll talk about the answer. Maybe give a shout out to the person that found the answer first. Hey, in the future, we'd love to give out a prize, and maybe one day we might. And one thing you can do to help us reach that goal is follow and like our podcast on whatever platform you are listening, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcast, or YouTube, as we will begin releasing shows on that as well. And we thank you in advance for that, as your feedback goes a long way. Well, that's all for my little PSAs. I want to kick it over to Matt now. Matt, you want to give us the clues for this week?
Yeah, so to get started, a couple of the clues here is as a freshman, he led the team in batting. He batted 376 with an on-base percentage of 489. He had 54 runs as well as 92 hits. And the second clue here is that he was out of Brandon High School. He was drafted by the Texas Rangers, and then ultimately he ended up with the USF Bulls, and then he got drafted again by the Oakland Athletics, where he ended up playing 7 seasons in the minor leagues, where he also collected 54 home runs and 600 total hits. So if you guys can get those those stats together and do some research, we will be able to reward the winner.
Absolutely. We'll reveal that answer next week for who's that bull, and we'll give you a fresh set of clues. Well, that is all we have for tonight. Like I said, we had a jam-packed show. Remember, the Bulls are on the road this week as they travel to Bethune-Cookman for the midweek, and then we will travel to Charlotte for the next weekend series. So be on ESPN Plus and Bulls Unlimited. Again, Derek Sharp, Jim Locke, they do fantastic jobs with the broadcast. Cannot thank you guys enough. And be on the lookout for Bruins Thirsty Thursday show. It's going to come out later in this week. John and Mark will give you all of the preview information that you will need heading into the weekend. Well, Matt, you have any final thoughts?
Looking forward to seeing the Bethune-Cookman game and continuing this two-game winning streak and turning it into a three-game winning streak. There's always a debate whether or not two games is a winning streak or is it three. So looking forward to some more wins.
Absolutely. I will second that. Well, for Matt and myself, I just want to thank you all for listening, and we will talk to you all next week. Go Bulls.
Go Bulls.